All right, here it is, another episode of The Grail. Today it's going to be cars, watches, and architecture with my guest. Introduce yourself, my man.
Matt Farah, host of the Smoking Tire podcast, Smoking Tire YouTube series, owner, Westside Collector Car Storage.
How the hell are you, bud?
Chilling. You dropped in on me in mid anxiety attack.
Just a fucking shit day.
No, it's not shit. It's just, it's such an interesting. I'm in a couple different businesses, and one of them is the collector car storage business. And cars do a whole lot of sitting right up until they don't. And so, you kind of just have to wait around until, and then if enough people call you at once or just show up at once, and you got to start shuffling stuff around and you're by yourself, but because it's normally slow, you've got social engagements or podcasts to record. It's like, woo! So anyway, I've cleared that out. Here you are with a pup, and I just ripped a bowl and let's go.
Yeah. It's we're over here at your place, and it's funny because a couple years ago I was moving to New York. I think it was like 2-3 years ago. I was passed at the Comedy Cellar, so I was like, all right, I'm going to go to New York and dive into full-on New York comedy. I didn't want to be an LA comic or a New York comic. I wanted to be a comic.
Yeah.
And so I dove into that scene, got an apartment out there.
You didn't want to be in like a Minneapolis comic? You weren't really feeling like the Phoenix scene?
The Phoenix scene, well, there's great scenes, but I don't
mean to crap on Phoenix or Minneapolis. They probably have.
I just didn't want to be known as one or the other.
Right.
It's like, people are like, oh, he's an LA comic or he's a New York comic. I just wanted to be, and I also wanted to feel out that whole East Coast life.
Well, everybody needs to live in New York City for a little bit.
I believe it. I believe it.
It hardens you just enough. Just enough. Then you got to leave before you get too hard.
I'll tell you one thing about New York that's really interesting is, and I'll get to how I found out about you, was when you're in New York, you completely lose the car thing.
Yes, it becomes very irrelevant quickly if your life is in Manhattan or within the city. Yeah, for sure.
And even me being a California born and raised and such a purist and a car freak, even if I lived on the outside of town, I wouldn't want to have a good car out there because of snow and salt and everything. It's just demons.
100%. After I graduated from college, I was living in Manhattan.
Right.
Stuyvesant Town. Right, back when it was like only a little bit expensive.
Right, right.
Like back when it was like, is this a ripoff? Now it's like, this is a ripoff.
Yeah.
So I was on 16th and 1st, which if you're familiar with New York City, is a pretty nice area. There's cool stuff around. It's right on the edge of two cool neighborhoods. One thing you don't find, parking garages.
Nope.
There are very few parking garages, if any, on First Avenue over there. There's basically none. And I was on 16th and 1st. The nearest parking garage was I want to say 8th and between 2nd and 3rd Avenue.
Right.
St. Mark's maybe or 9th Street. It was pretty far to walk to get your fucking car. My car when I moved to New York City, I was driving an Audi S4, which is a pretty nice car.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I wanted to be somebody that I definitely wasn't, and I definitely don't want to be anymore. I wanted to cosplay as a tough guy in my mid-20s.
Hilarious.
And I bought a Hummer, an H1 Hummer.
Shit.
Not like a Schwarzenegger Hummer.
Yeah, the Schwarzenegger, the steel one, the big ones.
Yeah.
The too wide.
Yeah. While I was living in Lower Manhattan, and I was working in New Jersey. Whoa. So I was commuting.
Through the tunnels.
Here's
in
my
that
commute.
Thing.
My commute in a Hummer was up, down to Houston Street.
Yeah.
Up the FDR Drive, which if you're not from New York and you haven't been to New York, the FDR Drive is basically as close to driving as we have in this country to Beirut. It is a complete free-for-all. There's no road maintenance. The road markings are horrible. The potholes are horrible.
Roads are narrow.
People are aggressive, and the consequences can be very disastrous.
Yeah.
And there's horrible traffic also during
and crazy weather.
Right. Yeah. So I was going up north on the FDR Drive, across the Harlem River Drive, and across the George Washington Bridge, and I was working about 5 miles over the bridge in northern New Jersey. The good thing was diesel in New Jersey was like a third of the price of gasoline. Wow. It was like diesel was like $1 and gas was like $3. So all this diesel I was going through in the Hummer, it was offset by the fact that it was kind of cheap. And also the running costs of a Hummer are very low. I mean, if it works, it's like a military truck. So if you're just driving it around, it'll probably work, right?
What is the engine in that? Who made the engine?
General Motors.
Oh, really? GM made those?
Yeah, the GM. So they were started by a company called AM General, which also made things like post office trucks and
service vehicles
and other non-armored military vehicles, like regular stuff. But then they were military vehicles, and then eventually General Motors bought AM General and or acquired the rights to build the Hummer and under the GM banner, and they own the rights, and they still do.
Was that the?
And they supplied engines from the beginning. They
is
were
that
always
the
using
military
GM.
era, and then when GM buys it, are they still making it for the military?
Oh yeah,
or is that
they were making them for the military until like 4 or 5 years ago.
Wow.
So they made them for the military from like 1989 to 2016 or something. Yeah.
And at the same time, they're starting to
1993 to 2006 was the civilian versions.
And they're created like the Hummer 3 and all that.
Then they made the other ones, the H2, which was based more like on a Tahoe, and then the H3, which was based on the smaller Chevy pickup.
Right.
Those were civilian vehicles from the beginning. There's no military application for the H2 or the H3. But the H1 was an army truck that had like real basic appointments in it, right? And it looks like a school bus, basically, and it drove like a school bus. Like,
slow as shit.
Really slow.
God.
I have actually driven a school bus, and I can tell you that they are shockingly familiar.
Yeah.
And so the point being, I was living in Manhattan, and I wanted to be a badass, and I very quickly hated driving it, because it was a school bus. But I had a friend who wanted to be a badass even more than me. And he literally would be my driver. So I was acting all tough like I had a driver, and this dude would drive me wherever because he liked driving the Hummer.
Now, why were you doing this? Were you like New York, you into like hip hop gangster, or was it more old school Godfather?
No, it wasn't hip hop gangster,
and
it wasn't Goombah-y type of things either. I just thought I was just insecure. And I wanted to look hard in a cool car. And
were you a fighter?
No, I never got in fights. I was very nice. That's the problem, is like I was a nice person. I wasn't the kind of person, the kind of people that drive the Hummers are like, they're like aggressive people.
Oh, well, they're usually kind of Orange County bros,
Yeah, they're very broy.
Yeah,
and I'm not that broy, and so it wasn't me. I only had this thing. It cost me at that parking garage, it was $1,200 a month in 2006.
Wow.
To park that fucking thing.
Were you loaded at the time?
I mean, no, I wasn't. I was spending a lot. I spent a lot of my money, and the point of the story is a couple things. One, I realized that I wasn't the Hummer guy.
Yeah.
Really fast. I realized it in a matter of weeks, and two, if I hadn't realized it, other people reminded me, because on the occasions I parked it on the street on First Avenue or whatever, I'd find spit on it, like dog It was really at like the peak anti-Hummer sentiment.
Yeah.
Or approaching that. And oh, by the way, the PS of the story is I only had this vehicle for about 90 days.
90 days.
Yeah, and because of all these things, because of the and then I quit that job in New Jersey and got a job in New York. So there goes my New Jersey commute. Now I'm buying diesel in Manhattan, which was like $6 a gallon or something.
There's only like 2 gas stations in Manhattan. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I never
It's
thought
like Death Valley, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go to Death Valley, or like if you drive up to Big Sur and you're, on Highway 1,
Sur,
the San Simeon.
That goddamn one.
Yeah, it's like $9 a gallon.
Yeah, they gave you for $7.50.
Bro, and if you need it, bro, you fucking need it.
Oh, man.
The same one, Furnace Creek in Death Valley. If you ever drive through Death Valley, you don't want to get fucked. Like, you know what I mean? What they teach in the desert, right? You never pass a gas station in the desert. It's like that. But anyway, I sold. I was not Hummer guy. I was never gonna be Hummer guy. I realized really fast that I wasn't Hummer guy because I let the fucking homie drive the truck. I didn't even drive the truck. I just like let the homie drive the truck.
Yeah. What color was it? Desert sand or green?
It was black. It was
Black?
a black.
Oh, wow.
And it was the wagon one.
Oh, I love
and I'll
that
tell you
one.
what, it had a bitchin' stereo. It had an 18 speaker monsoon stereo.
Whoa.
That it had an ugly deck, like an OG cassette deck, but it bumped like a motherfucker. And there was one horrible rainstorm and one horrible snowstorm. And on those days, I actually became a golden god.
Yeah.
And
They're just a king in it.
when I drove north up the Hutchinson River Parkway in the sawmill and just blasted through those like 3-foot deep puddles that people are like stopped for, and there was a blizzard in Manhattan one day, and I tore ass up First Avenue at midnight at 60 miles an hour and 2 feet of snow, stopping at zero lights. You know, the snow was so deep, nothing else would go through it. All Manhattan was stopped. But I traded it straight up, end of story, for a Mini Cooper.
A Mini Cooper.
Yeah. Went the other way.
Which is the worst car ever. The transmissions are so bad.
Yeah, this one was in 2006. It was a manual, and it was a John Cooper Works. And other than having wheels that I got the big rims, big 18s. Probably should have gone with like the 15 like rally spec, you know, with some balloony tires. But for some ride quality. But that car at the time was very fun. It was, and it got me in a lot of trouble. I got a lot of big tickets.
Wow.
Big, you know, New York's 55 miles an hour still. It's the fucking stone age of driving back there. So you get a ticket in the mid or high 90s. Oh. It's really criminal.
Oh yeah.
In New York State.
Oh yeah. Now, my whole point of the story of New York was I was going and I was like, well, I don't know how long I'm going to be there. I'm trying to sell this car and nobody's bought it yet. So I'll store it somewhere. So I'm over at Sublime. And Coco says, check out this guy. He was building this place. I don't know if it's ready yet, but look into it. And I was on YouTube and saw you, and you were like, I'm building this place. It's a nightmare. We're waiting for this and that. And I was like, shit, that's not going to be ready. I need something now. I ended up storing it at my buddy's house, Kevin Christie's, and over at Coco's house in his garage for a while. So that was a godsend. But
I can't compete with free. I can't compete. I can't compete with a buddy's house. Sorry.
I know.
That's.
But what it did was, fast forward about 8 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, once a year or so, I go down my Magnum PI 308 rabbit holes on YouTube, and boom, pop up you in this black 318. That's what it is, right?
28.
328. And I was like,
I know that fucking bald guy.
I was like, hey, that's that dude.
That's the guy with the concrete problem.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Let's watch this. So I start watching. You had just bought this car. And then that goes
Were you watching
by.
with me and Donnie? And
Yeah.
Donnie going through my car that was all fucked.
Fucking great, man. He's just like, you got a great car here, but we got to get rid of this.
You have a great car. We just need to replace everything. Really, what makes it great? Well, it's black, and it's hard to repaint a car. So.
Yeah, it's black on black, so you're not going to get that anywhere. So then I come to do Christian's show, The Sessions. I have him on the podcast, actually, and we end up
Christian's
here.
show, The Session Instagram Live, is, I think, the best radio on radio. No offense to your podcast. No offense to my podcast.
Yeah.
What he does is magic.
Yeah. But my show's better. But yeah. But anyway, my point is, you kept coming up, and I was like, wow. And then I immediately knew, let's get this guy on the podcast. We were into the same thing. We started talking about architecture.
Either we have common interests or his SEO is really good.
Yeah, right?
You seem like the kindred spirit.
Oh, God,
for sure.
yeah. Well,
I
mean,
watch nerd, car nerd.
Architecture nerd.
Yeah, I mean, mid-century modern architecture for sure.
100%.
I'm doing a house with my wife, and we're really excited about it. And don't say where it is, but I sent you to drive through my new neighborhood. It's cool as fuck, isn't it?
Oh, I couldn't believe that it existed in L.A.
Little gold mine.
I couldn't believe it.
And we sort of the lounge here at Westside Collector Car Storage, where we're chilling in, has a little bit of a mid-century vibe to it. We've tried to do it in as much of a warehouse type building as one could, but This place was all about pushing the limits of the city's building codes, because nobody has ever built anything like this before. Where we have cars stacked 4 high over a basement. So there's a basement, a concrete deck, and then 18 4-high stackers, and it's in a seismic zone. So it's pretty crazy to think about cars stacked 40 feet high in a place that's known for earthquakes.
Well,
so that was and no one had ever done that before. So we had to literally hire the fire and building department to write the codes for us, which is like hiring, your wife's divorce lawyer or something.
Let's get into your life, because I don't know anything about it. But what starts you off with cars? With me, I always say it was definitely road and track. It was James Bond for Ferrari, and then Aston Martin. And then my 6th grade teacher, Miss Foster, had a 70s root beer Targa.
Oh, cool.
So I was just...
Well, that's pretty G. Imagine a school teacher today
rolling
like a fairly period Targa. That would be kind of like, wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I loved it. I don't know if she's still alive, but I remember she gave
that thing.
She gave me and my buddy a ride home one time, and it was just a root beer Targa, and I was like, this is rad. I thought teachers made fortunes back then, but maybe her husband was rich or something. But how do you get into cars? And what was before you do all this? Did you have, obviously, you used to talk to jobs in New York, but what is it?
So, okay, if you want to go to the beginning, same kind of thing. Road and track. The first car magazines that my dad bought me. I was hooked immediately.
East Coast.
East Coast. I was born in New Jersey. We moved to Atlanta when I was very young, and then back to New York when I was about 11, and I spent most of the time in the suburbs of New York, Westchester County, New York, and so basically, first it was car magazines, and then it was taking me to some races, and then it was, look behind you, that's one of those fake Disney World car, when you're a
car
kid,
driver,
and they dress you up in the props, and they make the fake magazine covers. So that's me at, I think, maybe 6 or 7 years old. I've got like a mullet. I've got a flat top mullet combo, so it's probably like 87.
You look like a John Gotti's son or something.
And I'm on a fake car and driver cover.
Yeah.
And there's a picture over in my office or downstairs of me sitting in the Back to the Future DeLorean. So Back to the Future and the DeLorean was the first car that really was like, for me, cars could be special. I
Remember the red ones?
Huh?
Remember the red ones?
Yeah. So every DeLorean that was painted was done so by a dealer.
Oh.
They all came from the factory, unpainted stainless steel, just like the car in the movie, which is really neat. I had a DeLorean for a little bit.
Slow as shit.
Really slow. You can make them faster, but if you actually want to make them stop or handle well, it requires a deep pocketbook and basically a complete re-engineering of the car. There's a lot if we wanted to go down this rabbit hole, I could give you 5 reasons why you shouldn't bother trying to make a DeLorean fast, because I've been there.
Yeah.
But
what was the engine in the DeLorean?
It's called a PRV V6, and PRV stands for Peugeot, Renault, Volvo.
Shitty. So
that V6 ended up in quite a few different places, as shitty as all the Peugeots. They were pretty much the shittiest. The Renault actually was in some sedans, but it was also in the Renault Alpine, which was an interesting rear-engined sports car that had quite a bit in common with the DeLorean, actually. And in terms of Volvo, all of the Volvo. So remember in the 80s, Volvos, you could get like a 740 or a 940.
Absolutely.
And you could also get a 760 or a 960.
Yep. Like the Polestars now.
Right, but do you know what those numbers meant?
No.
That basically, the 7 and 9 was chassis.
Oh, okay.
Length of the size of the chassis. And then the engine, 4 or 6 was 4 cylinders. So the 760, the 960, that was the Volvo. Was the same engine as the DeLorean, the V6. Yeah.
Wow.
So, It was what you'd call a workhorse engine. It wasn't like shitty in terms of like would conk out and leave you stranded.
Zero performance, though.
Yeah, but they found some ways. There are ways to hot rod it. Mine was hot rodded with ported and polished heads, cams, headers. They have a different computer. They have a different fuel system. At mine, it only, it was a stock was like 140 horsepower. It was pretty pathetic.
Whoa.
Mine fully hot rodded out made about 210 horsepower.
Wow.
And they had, you could go even further. They had a supercharger you could put on it, which was like another $5,000. That took you up to about 240 horsepower. It didn't even return all that much.
Wow.
And then there's folks who are swapping out the engines. And there's a guy who put a Corvette motor in it. There's a guy who put a Lotus engine in one. There's some fucking lunatic on Instagram who put like a twin turbo, like some Lamborghini. Some ridiculous, and to get a little bit into the weeds, there's a reason you probably don't want to do that. It's because you can't really put bigger brakes on it, so you're stuck with these shitty brakes.
Like
pretty
four
much.
pistons or something?
No, like single piston,
Whoa.
like 10-inch, like they're like go-kart brakes. They're not good.
Holy shit.
They're not. They weren't even good for 1981. Forget being good today. So unless you put, DeLoreans cars from the 80s have small wheels.
Yep.
If you have a high performance car from the 80s, like I have a 1980s Lamborghini, it stops okay because the brakes are the best they could do for the time being. So it's okay, right? But the DeLorean wasn't even the best they could do for the time being, but it still has those small 14-inch wheels. So you just can't fit a bigger disc inside that unless you put some really bizarre looking rims. Like you can't take a car from the 80s and put a wheel size from today on it because it'll look really stupid. Yeah. So you have to decide, and whatever.
So the DeLorean.
But anyway,
is your next car
got me into cars. And then my dad got me a go-kart, and then my dad
Briggs and Stratton?
It was. Yeah, it was a Briggs and Stratton, 5 horsepower.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I started doing a little bit of local go-kart racing, nothing you would call like what the kids like Lewis Hamilton do when they're kids, like little bullshit stuff.
Yeah.
And just trying to drive whatever I could throughout, high school and stuff like that. Reading Road and Track, and that always seemed. By the way, I write for Road and Track now.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
I write. Am I in what? December 2020. Am I in? I can show you. I'm in the newer issues of Road and Track. Yeah, I wrote, and not only do I write for Road and Track, I write supercar reviews for Road and Track. Like I review McLarens and the new. I'm writing like the new GT3 review for Road and Track. So like, it's pretty awesome to be like the dude that gets to write the new supercar review for that magazine.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's like full circle.
It is. It really is. Yeah, and like, I don't make that much money writing for Road and Track. Like I make more money doing podcasts and doing other stuff, the new media stuff. But it's so satisfying to be like, to circle it back. You know what I mean? And so, but I never thought that was like a real thing that you could do. And YouTube wasn't out. Podcasting, independent publishing was not really a thing yet. So I did follow my other passion, which was photography. So I went to the University of Pennsylvania and I studied photography. I majored in it. I had gallery showings. I was the photographer of the year at UPenn in 2004.
What were you shooting? Like Diane Arbus, weird shit?
I was shooting actually landscape and architecture mainly. I have in my office. I'll show you later. I have a really cool shot I did of Al Capone's jail cell at Eastern State Penitentiary, and I was shooting on an 8x10 camera, like OG.
Yeah,
and
wow.
So, but obviously there's no money in anything like that, and right as I graduated from college, digital photography came up, and that was just like, oh, so there's no value in anything I do anymore. Okay, I see.
Zero.
And so I went into work for some graphic design companies. I found that to be very boring and stupid. And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know what to do, but like, let me try to like get into cars. So I worked at a couple of dealerships, and eventually
Selling
landed-
cars?
No, no, just like I was like 22, 20.
Yeah.
So I was really just like running cars around and helping out where like salesman's assistant, really kind of bullshit jobs. But I landed at this place, Gotham Dream Cars, which was an exotic car rental company.
Right.
And I was there for about 2 years, and I learned a lot. You know, they had all the new supercars, which I drove.
Like dream racing in Vegas.
Right, except, you know, we had a small warehouse, you know, and we had all the cars, and we would either, it was in northern New Jersey, and we would either drive or trailer the cars to the customers. We delivered. And so I learned, you know, when you're dealing with rental cars, you know, just like dream racing in Vegas, I'm sure, you know, you learn what breaks, what doesn't break, what, you know, what cars are really built well, what cars are actually not built so well, what cars do the customers like versus what cars are actually the best to drive when you have the experience. You know, what cars do the customers crash the most, what costs the most to fix. You spend 2 years around that. I mean, you really pack in the knowledge, and you come out of there with a real in-depth knowledge of the driving dynamics, life cycle costs, and, you know, popularity levels of various different cars at various different price points and exclusivity levels. And that knowledge came with me. I eventually left that business. I returned later to open their Los Angeles location when they expanded to LA. I managed that for a couple of years too. But I opened a car wash with my friend in Harrison, New York. You ever go up to Harrison, New York?
No.
Harrison's like, it's where all the Brooklyn Goomba Mafia guys go to like have kids in a quieter area. So
that's
like,
crazy.
It's super Guido-y. It's next to Rye where I grew up, and it's really Goomba-y in a hilarious way.
Right.
It was like that,
Like just the set of The Irishman the whole time.
way richer. I mean, where the top people go. These guys are living in 7,000 and 10,000 square foot houses on 3 acres, and the cars they're bringing to our detail shop are Range Rovers and Escalades and Ferraris. It's not mid-level criminal guys. It's fucking their lawyers and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And it was really wild hearing these guys talk about things and just overhearing and picking stuff up. But all we did was wash their fucking cars.
Just a detail company.
It was a little 4-bay detail shop.
Right.
You know, we had 4 guys and still there, you know, amassing more knowledge about different levels of quality of paint and how, you know, customers perceive stuff.
Single stage and all that stuff.
All that kind of shit. And my partner at the time, his name is Larry Casilla. He's now one of the best detailers in the world.
Really?
Yeah. And he charges, I mean, you want him to do your car, it's like starting at 5 G's. And he'll get it all. He gets it all day, every day.
Well, I
and he
watch
has his own
those
product
concourse
line.
guys, man.
If you check out his YouTube channel, it's called it's Ammo, AMMO NYC. He has these really amazing instructional videos, and he makes his own products, which we use here.
I know the product.
The Ammo guy.
Yeah, I know.
So me and him, we started together at a car wash. I went to middle school and high school with that guy, with Larry. And I got him he got me into the business because he wanted to do the car wash in the shop, and I hated washing cars. So he was the nerd, and I did the marketing and was like the yuck 'em up with the customers kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know, and then he went on. Once I left that business, because I didn't really like the car wash business, I left when YouTube became a thing. Oh, I'm jumping over stuff. We started a driving club with our customers, and it was called the New York Motor Club, and we were like, oh, we'll give these guys a reason to like drive their cars.
Yeah.
And
so
and
weekends go on a drive?
Yeah. Early. This is like 2005, 2006. It was early, before a lot of this stuff was going on. And we would do that, and then we'd detail the cars, and then YouTube launched. And then I went, oh, free videos. I went, all I have to do is make the video, and it's shareable. I was like, we can make videos of our drives, and then people around the world will know what the New York Motor Club is. That'll be cool. And like, then we could have like expand our brand that way. So I hired this dude, and we made these like videos of our drives, and they basically looked like skateboarding videos, but with cars.
That's cool.
And it was so old school that we had like Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots as like the music.
Yeah.
Pre-DMCA. And so we made these videos of these drives, and we published them. They're still up on YouTube. It's amazing. They're like 240p.
And you didn't get flagged for the music?
It was before there was a law.
Wow.
And the videos are grandfathered in. You can go see them. They're still up, and they can't even take the music out.
Wow.
They grandfathered in everything before the law took effect. So those videos very quickly got me a little bit of a big head, and I went, the videos, that's going to be the thing.
They were getting a lot of hits?
They were just enough, and someone literally started hiring me to host an internet car news show called Fastlane Daily.
Right.
Someone paid me a salary to do it. And at first I was like, I'll do it to promote the car wash. And then I was kind of like, I need to get out of the car wash. Sold him my share, went off to make videos. And then that very quickly turned into having my own channel, The Smoking Tire, and developing that over many, many years and reviewing cars.
How many years The Smoking Tire now?
I started The Smoking Tire in 2009.
Wow.
So 12 years, about 2,000 videos. We've got about a million, little over 1 million subscribers, all very real, organic. I've never bought a view or a subscriber, and it's just right now. I had that dude who I hired to make the skateboarding videos. He was my partner when we started. He eventually moved back to New York to shoot more produced pieces, and I don't blame him for that at all. And I do it now with Zach, who you met.
Yep.
He produced the podcast with you and Christian, and Zach is an extremely clutch player who's been with me since 2009, and he's now my partner. And we do it. We do 2 videos and 2 podcasts. 48 weeks a year.
Wow.
That's
So
great.
2 a week?
2 car reviews and 2 podcasts.
Now let's start getting into, you start doing The Smoking Tire, and at what point do the major big, the big four, I would say like Ferrari,
Right.
Lamborghini, Porsche, and those guys, when do they start hitting you and going, hey, you want to drive a car?
They never hit you.
No?
They only will eventually start responding to your emails.
Oh.
No, very few people achieve a level of status on their own where the manufacturer is hitting them up directly to drive the new product.
Right.
There are times when that happens to me. Matt Farah as the Smoking Tire gets that privilege from a couple of places. Matt Farah as a writer from Road and Track gets quite a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's that. You have to be pretty big where you're not actively scheduling your own cars. I'm scheduling all my own cars. Now, it's an incredible privilege to be able to drive press. I drive what are called press cars, which are cars, brand new cars, provided by the manufacturer for the purposes of people like me to review. So that's why if you read a bunch of different car magazines, you might see what looks like the same car,
Of course.
in a bunch of different places, and that's probably the same car.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a guitar stomp box review or where they just
Any
send
product
it around,
they send it around.
Yeah.
And so I every week pretty much get to drive a new car, which is real cool. In the beginning, when we first started the Smoking Tire, we thought we weren't like thinking that we were going to get rich or successful necessarily from the channel. What we really thought was we're going to move from New York to Los Angeles where we could shoot cars year round.
Right.
That was important. We came out here and we went, okay, we're going to be in LA and we can use this opportunity as sort of a rolling audition for television. Like we can make these car review videos every week, and then TV casting people who had started calling by then would always see something new. We didn't realize that like the internet would be more important than television, like pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, well TV is just useless now. I mean,
At
like,
this point,
yeah,
it's
just-
not.
Who cares? You make your own thing, and then like I've been saying this over the last 2 years, content is king.
Yeah, of course
Just
it is.
Have your own content. You
Yeah.
have your own power. You
Yeah.
have your own world.
Yeah, we started making YouTube video. My first YouTube video was November 2006, but the Smoking Tire's first YouTube video was April 2009, and in 2011 we started the podcast, which at the time my friend had to talk me into. And I was like, everybody's already podcasting. Nah, that's stupid. We shouldn't do that. Everyone's already doing it. And this is 2011. And but they talked us into it, and it was fun. We enjoyed it, and we committed to doing one episode a week for a year. And if by then we got, advertisers or whatever, we would, keep it going. And we were able to, and we kept it going. And podcast turned into podcast with video, turned into live podcast video, and then all that kind of stuff. And it's fun. It's good.
At what point do you get the idea to build this compound? Let's tell people what it is. What it is it's over in Culver City, and it's basically if you have amazing cars and you only have one garage or
not even amazing car, just a car you really care about.
Right.
A special car.
Yeah, special car.
More, yeah.
You can bring it over here and park it, and it's kind of like a billionaires boys club type of thing.
It's a special parking lot for special cars. We have higher security, we have cleaner air, we have, more trained people.
Detailers.
We have detailers on site. We have concierge services. We have flatbeds. We can do all kinds of stuff here.
Total LA thing. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it would work in New York as well. I mean, I saw the first place like this, not the first, but the first one I saw was actually in New York. It seemed like an interesting idea.
They got them outdoors there. It's hilarious.
I mean, they got and they RV storage places and stuff like that have outdoor ones too, but it really in LA, as someone who personally wanted to have more than one car. I learned very quickly that if you wanted to live near the beach, money could buy you a really, really nice house, but it really could only buy you so much space. I mean, and I'm not talking about necessarily myself because I'm not that Rico Suave, but I'm talking about you look around, you go to Santa Monica or Venice or Manhattan Beach or anywhere of the premium beach communities in Los Angeles, and even a $10 million beachfront home might only have a 2-car garage and literally no driveway. Street into garage.
Yep.
That's the LA way. And you could easily have a $10 million home that would have that situation. It's a very common thing around here. And so if money isn't the problem, space is the problem, then it's just a matter of getting through the regulatory hurdles of making the math work. The reason I didn't stack cars to the ceiling here because I thought it would look cool. I did it because the land is so expensive that the math doesn't work unless you go very, very vertical. And so that is an indicator in itself of what a premium parking will be, in this part of town. And so it turns out that my bet was correct. It was very hard to build the building. It took a really long time. It was a nightmare of regulation and a nightmare of delays and, approvals and just the surprise costs that would come up that it was like you wouldn't even go, why is that so expensive? You would go, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
How is that even a thing? Those windows right there are about 2 inches thick. They're fireproof. This whole wall is fireproof.
Oh, the whole place is fireproof.
The whole place isn't fireproof, but we're in the lounge right now, which is divided from the warehouse area with a wall. That wall has windows in it. That entire wall that divides us from the warehouse has to be, quote, 2-hour fire rated, meaning a fire could rage in there for 2 hours and we could chill and finish the show and then just walk out the front door like nothing was going on the other side. That wall is like 9 layers of plywood and glass this thick.
Wow.
And that's a law. I didn't do that because I felt like it. That's the law.
Wow.
And oh, by the way, because we're underneath the floor of where we're sitting is the detail bay. That's also 2-hour fire rated. So it's... And the regulations are just crazy.
Is that because you're storing vehicles in there with gasoline?
Yes. Vehicles, running engines,
right.
Stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, where were you getting the money for this? Because it doesn't get built like you think in the time period, and all of a sudden you've got to be just hemorrhaging money.
Well, I'm very, very privileged in the fact that I have some family money to work with.
There you go.
So I was not beholden to a bank. And
there
so
you go.
if I was, I already had an unbelievable amount of anxiety about everything in this project. And if I also had banks breathing down my neck during that time,
Yeah, it would have. It would
be a real disaster.
You gotta walk away.
I'm a very privileged person in that during my lifetime, my father, who's one of the most interesting people you'll ever meet, became an incredibly successful fashion retailer, and so
who is he?
His name is Roger Farah. He just retired about 2 months ago as chairman of the board of Tiffany's.
Oh shit!
But from 2000 to all right. Here his quick resume.
Yeah.
In 1987, he became CEO of Saks Fifth Avenue at 33 years old.
Wow.
He then went on to be CEO of Bloomingdale's.
Wow.
Followed by Federated Department Stores, which was the parent company of Bloomingdale's. Then Macy's.
Wow.
Then Woolworths.
Whoa,
Which, you know how Woolworths isn't around anymore?
Yeah.
You can thank my dad for that.
Yeah.
Woolworths, the parent company, owned not just Woolworth department stores, but also Foot Locker brands.
Oh,
so
wow.
all the Foot Lockers, as well as Champ Sports and the East Bay catalog. Remember East Bay?
Yep.
The athletics catalog?
I do.
So they killed Woolworths, rebranded the parent company Venator, and they were then pretty much just all the athletic stores, and they were very successful after that. And from there, that was until 94 to 2000. Then my dad, from 2000 to 2015, he was the president and COO of Ralph Lauren, which he grew into, I think he grew the company by 10 times.
Wow.
And then he left there and was the CEO of Tory Burch.
Wow.
For 3 years, and then he was the chairman of the board of Tiffany's for 3 years, and last year he oversaw the sale of Tiffany to LVMH, which was the biggest luxury merger in history.
That was crazy, that merger.
And because Bernard Arnault, the chairman of LVMH, tried to sue to stop the deal and get a reduced value because of the pandemic.
That's right.
And then when Tiffany's numbers came out, they were actually higher. They went up, and so my dad beat Bernard Arnault in those negotiations. So we're very proud of him. He's a fucking giant. I mean, he's like, he's a genius. He can do speed math in his head. Like, he can do interest rates in his head. He can do like really fast, like 4-function math. He can do crazy fast. So like nobody could ever pull like a fast one on him because he can just do the math right in front of you in his head.
Wow, the old saying, "Do the math." I already did.
He's a G, and his resume is very, very impressive.
You got any Tiffany dial Rolexes?
No. You know what he got as a retirement present to himself? After the merger, he got the very last Tiffany dial Patek Nautilus ever made.
Oh, worth a fortune, a 5711.
Yeah, steel, stamped November 2020. You'll never see one stamped later than that.
Oh my God, that watch.
If you're a watch nerd, they discontinued the model in January officially,
yeah.
And it was a big deal. So they discontinued it with a 10-year waiting list.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? And then they pop a green dial out.
One more. Last hurrah.
Yeah.
Last hurrah.
Yep.
If in the car world, there's a company called Pagani, and they make just crazy shit. I mean, the cars are millions of dollars. They're all handmade, and they're very, very the definition of exotic. They look like Batmobiles. You paint them black, it's the next Batmobile, and technically, there's a model called the Zonda that was technically discontinued in like 2011.
Yeah,
this motherfucker's just still making them.
Really?
Straight up. You just pay him like extra, and he'll be like, yep. This one is the super final, extra last ultimo edition.
Triple O never seen again edition. Yeah, I love that, right? I mean, the 5711 is going to come out again. And, Patek.
5712 or something.
Yeah, the head guy at Patek, he hates the 5711 because.
Well, Terry Stern, what he hates is steel.
Yeah, he
wants to sell precious metal watches,
right.
And it drives him nuts. A, it drives him nuts that the Tiffany dial watches were worth so much more than the regular ones, and B, it drives him very nuts that a steel watch is selling more on the flip market than a gold watch.
I know.
That drives the Patek people fucking off the wall.
Yep. Yeah.
So they're attempting to, and there are similar parallels in the Porsche world. In 2014, Porsche launched the new 991 generation GT3,
Yep.
right, which is a very cool car. They launched it in automatic only. You could only get it with the paddle shifters, right? No more stick. People were bummed, but they bought some anyway, okay? But in 2016, they came out with this thing called the 911R. It was basically a GT3 with no wing and a stick.
Yeah,
but
loved it.
But they only made a very small number of them. They were like, I don't know, $180,000 or whatever. And the flip market immediately kicked these things up to like $700,000.
Nuts.
And the Porsche people were super pissed because, holy shit, the transaction price of this car is really like $700,000. We need to get in on this action. And so they came out with the 911 GT3 Touring,
My favorite car.
which is basically a less expensive version of the 911R in order to kill that flip market and undercut those flippers and get in on that action themselves. And as soon as they announced the GT3 Touring, the price adjusted of the 911R went from about $700,000 back down to about $300,000.
The GT3 Touring, I think, is the greatest Porsche made because I'm not a fan of any kind of wings.
Yeah.
And I do love, and also I can't stand that plastic ports in the shoulders.
On the turbos?
I can't stand it.
I feel you. The turbo vents?
I don't like the turbo vents. I think it ruins the body shape, and I've always felt like that. And I think the
Sure.
GT3 just is beautiful.
Well, it's definitely their halo product right now. I mean, it's not necessarily the most expensive car they make, but it's the closest thing they sell to the race cars. It's the last naturally aspirated 911. All the other cars are turbo cars.
Yep.
It's the most driver focused. I just drove the brand new one. It's pretty crazy.
You drove the Touring or the regular?
No, the one with the wing. The only difference in the brand new one is wing. The Touring has no wing. Besides that, there's no other differences.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The seats are different in the Touring, though,
You
right?
can get either seat in either car.
Oh, wow.
Comfort seat or bucket
I
seat.
like comfort seat.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like if you're over 28.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with it's not like you're talking about putting a bucket seat in like a Lincoln Mark 7. You know what I mean? The Porsche comfort seat still holds you in place, really, really well.
Yeah.
So,
I think the 992 body is the greatest body made right now, other than the old ones,
we have a couple of those here at the shop, and the company is doing good work.
The ass end,
of course,
is
my
crazy.
Porsche is an 87. So
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've been there,
Yeah. I like it a little old school.
Let's
I
get
drive
into
weird shit.
Yeah. Let's get into the cars you do have. You got the Baja 911, which I fucking love. In this color of my bottled water right here, I call it pomegranate.
It's cassis red, which I call grape soda lipstick. It's very 80s.
I almost bought that color, I was telling you, and then it was fucking repainted. The guy was just a full ripoff.
Cassis, I think I could swear. I can't really take credit for it, but I might take a little credit for it. Cassis made a car worth less about 5 years ago and makes it worth more now.
Well, I think also the weirder colors started to take off about 3 years ago with the, Lift the Gold show.
Oh, yeah.
So you go there and you see these incredible colors. And it's like Mopar to me. I don't want a fucking white or black Mopar. I want
except much more unique because of people have always been able to do paint to sample with Porsches. So you really see a lot. Not only do they have the exclusive department, they also can do paint to sample from there. So they have a much more extended range of colors. Cars like the GT3 and the Targa and the Turbo, the higher end 911s, will very often have 20 or 30% in options tacked onto them.
Crazy.
That's pretty standard.
Right.
Whereas it's more like 10% for the other cars.
Well, I think that Porsche, I drove most of the cars over the last couple of years. I think they're just the best. What do you think?
Well, in terms of a lot of things, I think they probably are. I mean, they really are a very high quality product. I've been to their factories, and they do certain things that other companies don't really do, in terms of tolerance checks and stuff like that, adjustments with
Fit and finish
and tightness. Look, they're not perfect. I mean, they definitely had their part in Dieselgate. You know, they were selling diesel Cayennes that were cheating, and that
was all part of VW, though, right?
I mean, yeah, but like there were Porsche people involved in it as well. Like, you know, Porsche is a part of Volkswagen, and so you know they don't get to escape scot-free. But I think that their sports cars offer a very unique level of engagement, and customization and usability. And I think that their other cars, their regular cars, the Macan and the Cayenne, you know, are, if not class leading in each of their respective fields, then certainly more than competitive. I mean, they don't make a bad car. And their electric car, the Taycan, is, in my opinion, the best, you know, performance EV on the road, you know, right now.
That thing's incredible.
Yeah. And I own one of the other ones.
Now, what was your dive onto the Magnum PI Ferrari? I always wanted one, and of course, growing up, it was like, oh, they're $20,000 a tune-up and all that, you know, epic stuff, but... first of all, is that true?
No.
Okay. And also the Magnum PI one's not very fast, right?
So 308s aren't very fast. 328s are still not that fast, but they're a little faster. But, you know, look, I suffer from a glut of speed. And I also have in terms of like, I'm always testing the newest, fastest shit.
Right.
If in my personal collection I attempted to keep up with that, I would have no money. I mean, there's just, not only would I have no money, I'd always be frustrated because I can't financially keep up with what these really rich people are. Really,
every year it's another 100 horsepower.
Yeah,
it's,
and also
75 piston brakes.
Right, and also like, you know, the roads haven't changed.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like Angeles Crest Highway and like the Malibu Canyons and like the places where I go to have a little bit of fun in a car, you know, those are the same. They haven't changed. And so yeah, if for my job, I'm up there in very early morning driving some really fast stuff, going really fast by myself. But like when I'm not doing that for work, I'm not trying to also do that in my own time. So for me, a Ferrari 328 offers the maximum amount of engagement with just enough performance and a very nice sensory experience, and the kind of thing that you can actually use a lot and put miles on a lot. And so you know the difference between a transverse and a longitudinal engine.
Yeah.
So a Ferrari, the 328, the 308, the 308 GT4 and the early Mondials were transverse engines. And so what that means is, compared to the 348 and the 355 that came afterwards, you don't have to take the engine out to do the service. Those big, scary $20,000 service you're talking about, that's the 5-year major belt, what they call the timing belt service. In some Ferraris, you have to take the engine out to do that service. In the 308 or a 328, you don't. You do all the services for that car can be done with the engine in the car. And so that is a big deal, because to take an engine out is, 10 hours of labor on either end of whatever the actual work is that needs to be done. And the Ferrari labor rate is God knows how much. So,
and a nightmare too, because I love when stuff comes out of the factory and it's just in there for life with the bolts all.
Well, you have no choice. If you want to really drive an old car, it's going to get taken apart and put back together a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
And if someone does it right, I know what you're talking about, and where I really give a shit about that kind of stuff is the interior. I don't want to take apart my Italian car's interior any more than I really have to.
Yeah,
but with the engine and the suspension and stuff like that, you need to rebuild it. The 30-year-old Ferrari, it's gonna need shit. It's just if you're gonna use it. And if you're gonna use it, and if you want the experience to be optimized, I don't want the feeling of driving a tired old Ferrari. I want the feeling of driving a fresh old Ferrari. I want my car to feel like what it would feel like if someone was driving that car in 1986, or as close as I can get to that experience. So that means the stuff that's made of rubber that might deteriorate over 30 years, we replace that with the new stuff. Not better, not better than factory, the actual factory shit. And so I'm not against modifying and tuning cars, right? My Porsche is heavily modified, but with the Ferraris really like to be as close to factory as possible, and they like to be driven a lot and revved hard. There's something called an Italian tune-up that people talk about, which really just means warm up the car to operating temperature, go out on the road, put it in third gear, and zing it to fucking redline a few times. And when you hit redline, take your foot off at the gas and leave it in gear and let it come down off compression. So up to redline, down, and you do that like a couple times. And it literally blows the carbon out of the valves, and it literally makes the car run better. So It's important with Italian cars to do the Italian tune-up and to run them. And so I have that Ferrari, and I have an old Lamborghini at Countach, and it's
you got the one from the poster, right?
Yeah, it's been on a bunch of fucking posters. There's a picture in the hallway of it with Cindy Crawford.
It's so weird to me. Like, we all grew up.
A real Hollywood car.
We grew up with that Lamborghini Countach on our bedroom poster, and then you get the car. How do you track down and know that it was the exact car?
Well, so hang on. There's when we say the poster, there's lots of posters.
Right.
There isn't one poster.
Right.
The poster I had when I was a kid, because I had the poster, was a car that was white on white. The Alpine stereo white on white.
Oh yeah.
The car I own now is red with tan interior and gold wheels. And so my car, I didn't track it down based on its history. That just happened to be a coincidental thing. I got it off a friend. I bought it from a friend of mine, and I had got a chance to drive it for a video like 5 years before I bought it. And when he wanted to sell it, he asked if I would help him sell it, but I loved it so much that I found a way to purchase it myself.
What's that car like? Is it kind of like...
It fucking rules.
Is it hard? Is it...
So Lamborghinis in the 1980s were very much not race cars.
Yeah.
Ferrari was always, we build race cars and then we have these road cars, but we're really a racing company. Lamborghini didn't really give a shit about racing until much more recently. 2005-06 is when the Lamborghini really started racing. And so they built road cars. And in the 1980s, it was important for the car to go very fast in a straight line and to look very good. And it had to handle okay. It had to handle all right. Acceptably, And so the Countach is a much smaller car than most people think it's going to be when they see one. It's very small. And it's got an enormous fucking engine. It's a mid-engine car. So it's 3,200 pounds. It has double wishbone suspension and really good geometries. But it's set up to actually be a highway car. So it is really comfortable on the highway. It rides absolutely beautifully. It's soft. It's not a harsh ride at all. It has a really big fuel tank. It's like a 30-gallon fuel tank.
Wow.
And so you can go 300 miles on the highway
straight
at like 90 miles an hour.
Up to San Francisco in that thing.
And and it's a V12 that revs to 8,000 RPM with a dogleg gated shifter. And I have to take my shoes off to drive it because the pedal box is really small. Not because I care about dirt, but the pedal box is really small. So I take my shoes off to drive it. But once I do, it's actually very comfortable. And I drive it a lot, and it's really fun. It's a great thing to take out, and I give it real exercise. I take it up in the canyons. We go for a blast. I give it the Italian tune-up, and we go to car shows with it and stuff. And, people who see it, so many people will say, I've never seen one. You know,
Right.
I've never seen one in person, and I'm spoiled because I've seen a bunch. But I stop and look at every single one I see with equal interest and admiration, and the fact that I get to look outside my office window here at Westside and see my car, and then take it out and drive it whenever I feel. I don't give a fuck about the miles. I
Yeah.
drive it whenever I feel like it, and because of that, it stays pretty nice, and it's a great thing.
What's on your dream list to get that you
Oh my
can
God,
get?
I
I'm not
need to-
talking about like stuff that's unobtainable or whatever. But what do you think would be next? For
Yeah. You know, I would like to have a GT3. Boring as it is,
No, it's not
typical as it
boring.
is, I'd like to have a GT3.
you? What color?
Not red.
no, guards red. No.
Not guards red and not white, but something fun, something nice. I'm open to suggestion.
There's one for
And,
sale right now. It's like the Miami blue or Mexican blue, one of those two. It's in Germany. They've been trying to sell it for like 2 months. Keeps coming up in my Instagram. It is unreal because the trim is all chrome. So it's
God.
blue and chrome. It
Oh
looks
yeah,
sick.
it's the touring, right?
Yeah.
yeah, because the touring gets the silver
It
trim.
looks
yeah.
sick.
We have a Miami blue here at
Yeah.
Westside, as well as a voodoo blue. And
I don't
they're
like
both,
voodoo blue.
They're both pretty cool.
Yeah.
But you know, I would like to have a modern Porsche. I would also like to have a really nice stock air-cooled Porsche, like a 993,
Oh, yeah.
something from like 1995 or 1996 that I could because my off-road Porsche is very fun in the city. I built that thing. I'm not that in. I mean, I'm into off-roading, but I drive so much that my own off-road ready vehicle does not see all that much off-road time.
Right.
But before you give me shit, stop and give any Jeep Wrangler driver shit. They deserve equal amounts of crap than me for doing silly things with my Porsche.
Yeah.
But you know, I live in Venice on the west side. I drive in the city. There's potholes and speed bumps, and the driveway angles are all fucked up.
And it's rad.
And so a Porsche with a bit of a lift is pretty fun still. It's got equal parts Porsche and trophy truck. And it's stock enough that I can drive it almost every day if I want to. And it's modified enough that people smile and give you a thumbs up when they see it. You know?
I love it, man.
Yeah,
if you ever
it's cool.
sell it, call me.
It's fucking never.
It's-
I don't know. I can't. I don't think that car's too fun.
It's just
too
cool
fun.
looking,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
great.
Yeah.
And they'll move anything at the Mastro's valet to let you park that bitch up front.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Dude, how was being back at the store?
Oh,
I saw you were on the sheet.
It was wild.
Kick ass.
It was so. I'm there again tonight. It was just so.
Is it half capacity? What's the
Yeah,
deal?
it's half capacity, but it's very
Does it
emotional.
still feel like there's people?
Oh
It
yeah,
does?
yeah. You know what it feels like? It feels like, I've been a comedian 11 years now, and when I started, the store was not what the store was for the last 5 years.
Right.
A lot of people thought it was going to go away. It was. Just,
I watched what's his name's documentary.
Yeah, right, right.
What's his? I'm blanking.
Binder.
Yeah, it was sweet.
It was great. I
was
was
very
on
sweet.
that. I was
Yeah.
felt proud to be on that. But so when I started, the store was empty all the time. It wasn't like it was for the
Yeah,
last
it was
5
like
years.
the doldrums of the store, right?
It was just kind
lull.
of the where the outlaws went, and
Yeah.
and alt comedy was kind of picking up and big, and there was different scenes going, and then that thing started to hit again hard with all the different things that were happening, specials being shot
Mm-hmm.
in there, Rogan coming back,
Well, and all these comedians, all the
Podcasting.
big regulars there, all got their own podcast,
Right.
and all were
Talking
just
about
telling
it.
stories about the legend of the store on each other's podcast.
Right.
So that really drove a lot of it. Yeah.
So now-
I was hanging out there a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I was hanging out there. I hung out there too much to a point where I started hearing everyone's material like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, all right, let me give it 6 months, and then I'll come back when everyone's worked out their new material or
Yeah,
whatever. But
yeah.
I mean, I think probably 2 or 3 of the best nights I've ever had since in the 15 years I've lived in Los Angeles were nights where I went to see Joe at the store, and he's always been so nice to me. He sets me up in Mitzi's booth.
Yeah.
And then after his set, he has a guy come and tag me, and we go back to that secret bar behind the kitchen where it's fucking and you're just sitting at a round table, and it's like the fucking headliners just yelling shit at each other, and because Joe has brought you there, you're pre-approved and you're not a piece of shit and you're okay and you're in the club.
Or anybody in that room.
And you just go like, oh my God, I'm fucking just surrounded by it right now. This is the shit.
Yeah.
So sick.
I was in there in that VIP bar one night just going over my set, and Leo DiCaprio walked in. And I was sitting there, and I just, like, out of my mouth, I was like, Leo. Like, I knew, but it was me inside saying, oh, that's Leo, but I said it out loud, so I go, Leo, and he goes, hey, what's up, man? And I was like, I know, I didn't even need to say Leo. Yeah, it was so funny. I was like, Leo.
I need to close the shop, Dean.
I'm out.
Can we call
Thank
it?
you.
All right,
Let's
man. Thanks for doing it. The Smoking Tire podcast, the Smoking Tire YouTube channel. And I write my column every month in Road and Track.
And then what's this place called again?
Westside Collector Car Storage. We'd keep your car here, but we're sold out. We can't.
Damn, you got to build another one?
Hopefully, yeah.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Grail.